yet to come out with a framework of engaging with the civil society. I mean, we have Panchayat Raj, but for 20 years it hasn't worked. So government needs to work with civil society, and we would like to work with the government. But there is no framework, there is no hardware or software or a bridge that has been created till now. You know, government is sitting there, we are shouting there.
Can I, Dr. Singh, rephrase his question in a way, perhaps that would make it interesting, is how do you see the interface between the Panchayati Raj institutions, the civil society and the government? Is the civil society in some places taking over roles problematically? How do you engage as Planning Commission or maybe as an agency of the government?
The Panchayati Raj institutions are a part of our constitutional structure. They're part of government. The civil society institutes are voices of our citizens through various types of organizations. A lot of civil society organizations now work along with the Panchayati Raj institutions. The government has involved civil society organizations in many of its programs in many different ways, probably not enough, probably not exactly in the ways they would want to. And the government has also noticed that there are occasions in which civil society organizations would rather that they be the voice rather than the PRIs. And that needs, of course, to be noted and then suitably replied to. Thanks.
Yeah, myself, Rajan Kotru from International Center of Integrated Mountain Development, Nepal. I start with the statement made by Mr. Khosla saying that we are all in it together. And I think that's where I start. I think so far discussion in the forenoon and still in this session also, thanking the panelists, they touched several issues. My concern goes really, we are planning and we are thinking as if India exists alone. And that's where the big danger I see, for example, for the Himalayan ecosystems. We must understand whatever investment we want to make in climate change adaptation in some of the key states of India, at least in the northern states, eastern states and northeastern states of India, will depend how management and policy framework is working in the neighboring countries. For example, deforestation in the Kosi Mid Hills will impact Bihar anyway. Even if you do a lot of investments in Bihar, it won't help us. The erosion, the mining of timber, that will go on there and that will affect our ecosystems down below in the downstream. So we have to really, my question to panelists to be very short is that India has to start thinking about regional policy frameworks. And how is India open to talk about regional policy frameworks when it comes survival of downstream farming systems and livelihoods? Thank you very much.
Dr. Singh, would you like to answer that, perhaps?
Well, I entirely agree with you that particularly when it comes to climate change, it would be naive to consider country strategies which are not more holistically cast in a broader framework. The specific point which you made about fostering regional cooperation, which has a wide bearing on how India is going to manage its ecosystems, is in my view very, very relevant. I entirely agree that as far as the management of Bihar's economy and Bihar's agriculture is concerned, what happens upstream to river managements in Nepal, for instance, have a huge impact on management of downstream in terms of soil erosion, in terms of flood, in terms of agricultural productivity, and in terms of a whole host of the whole economic activity pattern. That is why I think that for the last decade at least, we have been emphasizing on the need for having meaningful dialogue, not only with the regional partners, but with Nepal in particular, for a massive reforestation program in Nepal, for training of rivers upstream, so that much before they begin to gather silt and so on, they can be tamed for the mutual benefit of both Nepal and India, and of course Bihar in particular, for harnessing the hydroelectric potential and harnessing the irrigation potential. So I agree with you that it is of high priority that we cast our environment management policy, our agricultural strategy, our energy strategy in a broader regional context instead of really focusing on what is of high priority to India alone. Because no matter what we do in terms of managing, for instance, Bihar's economy, unless we are able to find meaningful solutions in a better management of the ecosystem, which includes Nepal, which includes Bangladesh, it would not be possible to address these issues satisfactorily.
I'm reminded of when you talk of cooperation within the states itself and the funding agencies and the state and the center, there has been an ensuing trouble about where do you fund? Is there an overlap of funds coming in for the same kind of work in the same kind of more comfortable regions than the most vulnerable? And perhaps that kind of coordination is also somebody should be discussing.
Nitin, can I venture to ask you a counterfactual question? That whereas I entirely agree with you, do you believe that a much higher level of political trust needs to be invested in the dialogue process before these kinds of regional initiatives really get off the ground?
Thank you very much for this question. That gives me a bit more minutes, and thank you very much. You must be aware that ECMOD has already started a kind of a regional partnership that's called Kailash Sacred Landscape Initiative between India, China, two hot potatoes, and Nepal sandwich in between. And that's where, and our intention and our approach is to first create a kind of a bottom approach, bottom contact. That means because communities across Kailash landscape are virtually culturally same as they are in China, as they are in India, and as they are in Nepal. So for us, it's very, very important to build first the community-to-community approach, institution-to-institution approach, and take it from bottom and then try to influence the bigger power brokers in Beijing and in Delhi and maybe in Kathmandu. Maybe Kathmandu not so much, but still it is sandwiched in between the two big countries. I think this initiative, I am sure, and it was also supported by the Honorable Minister who was recently there in ECMOD, and he has a lot of expectations that this Kailash Sacred Landscape Initiative could actually build the basis for transboundary cooperation mechanisms in the Himalayan region. The other region is Indus Basin. That's also, ECMOD is working on that, which is also Pakistan, India, and China. And I think I'm optimistic that more and more knowledge is emerging, more and more contacts, institutional contacts and institutional cooperations are emerging, and that's very, very important. It's not only about investing in something, but also institutional cooperation at bottom level. I guess that will have a lot of impact, like this grassroots, communities influencing the policy debate here in Delhi. I'm sure the regional institutional cooperation will actually lead to a kind of a broader dialogue between the nations. Yeah, thank you.